saying we're ready.
Super. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to, here we go, very exciting AMA number 55. Today it's Hallie Mary. We've got Mary Camacho, the Executive Director of Holo, and Arthur Brock, co-founder and CTO. All right, so exciting news, lots of people. Great to have you here. So we've got some news that we want to share, very good news about Holo that we want to share in today's session. And we also had about 60 questions submitted for the session already, and quite a large attendance here, 445 people. So appreciate all the participation and the interest. We won't be able to get to all of the questions. There were some duplicates, but we've prioritized them based on the news. However, we are going to start with a demo of NOR before getting to those questions. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm already logged into the system. Let's just confirm that we can see that. I can see my screen there. Everyone can see, no doubt. So this is super exciting. So we've known Brooks for a couple of years, and the NOR team are building out a fantastic game, and they've been looking for a long time at like what's the right infrastructure to support Web3 gaming, and have gone back and forth on a whole series of options. And over the last few months, we've been collaborating on step one is the foundation of their platform, the space for NOR residents. So you can see I'm already logged in. And for those of you who've been following us for a while, you might notice that we have this web platform that's reconciling to this nor.gg domain. By the way, this isn't like the whole thing's properly going live in the next couple of weeks with the game. So, but the coolest thing about this is a Holochain powered identity network, player ID network, served up by Holo. So we're already starting to show how we're able to really experience the future of the internet here. And we can see we've got some very nice features, like we've bound Holochain and the blockchain, in this case Ethereum. And here I can see where I'm one of their aspect holders in NOR, so we can see that binding in play, which we've shown you with Fractal Tribute and a few other applications. And Mary, I don't know what, if you want to just take over the screen for a second, and you can show, because I was already logged in, you can take in browser, and we can talk people through the sign up process. While we do that, I'll give a little bit of commentary on what's going on behind the hood. Yep, perfect. Okay. Exciting. So yeah, here you can see, so Mary's loaded the domain, and here we can see that you can see the nice little logo there. Yeah, we have logged into the NOR platform. For those of you who understand and know the project, you'll get a little bit, again, you'll have a little bit of sense of this, but this is a purely like Web3 identity system. It's just, you don't need wallets. You've got your Holochain keys here, and you're using your username and password to open those keys and connect to those keys on your device. Yeah, beautiful. There you go. Holo doesn't store the password, so now we're connecting to Holo with a series of the alpha HoloPorts serving up this application.
I do just want to mention, notice the little fine print here. NOR is built on a new decentralized technologies. Loading may take a few seconds. The first time that you do this, we're actually setting up, we're selecting a host and actually installing your Holochain instance on that host. And so the first time takes longer to go through and log in, because we actually have to install a Holochain instance for your particular email address to be able to use.
Yep, it's very cool. Yeah, let's just go through some of the other stuff. I'm also conscious of time. But yes, essentially we've got a peer-to-peer private network binding the gamer gameplay and the game economies that we're going to be able to show you over the next few weeks. A very exciting approach to Web3 identity. And then there's a whole series of decentralization steps over time that are going to be put in place. We get to see actually powered by Holo. So we actually see, for me at least, probably for the first time, the power of connecting Holo and what it means for being able to give people an experience that they're used to via the web, but still be in the distributed web. And then really excitingly, we're going to be connecting into a game on this platform in the coming weeks. I'm just waiting for the game to be published. And so as that connection comes, we can start to see how we're interfacing between this identity system, the game data, and then we've got some really cool stuff to show with tournaments and matchmaking. Cool. All right. So I think we can go to the first question now, unless there's anything else on NOR that anyone wants to share.
Let's jump into the questions.
Super. Okay, so question one, why has there been no consistency in updates, no dev pulse for 3 months, no org update in half of a year, Holo roadmap unchanged for half a year?
All right, I'll start with this one. So yeah, that's not so great that we let our roadmap get behind. And that we didn't send an org update out for some months. But there is one going out today, actually, immediately after our AMA. But I will say there's probably a few reasons this has been happening. You know, this year's been a little bit different than others for us. We've been busy in new ways, right? We've been going out to events. We've been meeting with a lot of projects. We've been building prototypes that we have been kind of sharing about and doing a lot of different sort of work lately. And, you know, this has been creating a pull on our communications team, and we've been building out new capacity across the team. But I will say we have also been sending out really regular monthly newsletters with information about what's happening. And we've had a lot of vibrant regular messaging on LinkedIn and in our Twitter account, as well as on Telegram. So yes, you're right. We haven't done some of those other updates. And I know that the Dev Pulse is sort of more connected with big major releases, I think, in Holochain. So we will see those kind of uptick and be kind of coming at different times. But there's lots of other news, and we'll be getting that out today.
I'm on mute. Sorry. Just trying to coordinate. All right. So the second, are there differences in what Holochain is becoming and what was the vision at the beginning of 2017? If so, what?
Actually, so far, Holochain has not diverged much from the original vision. It's taken us a while to actually reach that vision, to get it feature complete, and there's still a few planned and requested features in that path, like ephemeral store and pub sub, that are still yet to come. That said, we actually have been having some new thoughts and designs and visions which diverge from the original plan, but we haven't had any bandwidth, haven't been able to devote any bandwidth to that, because we've really needed to keep our focus on getting Holo hosting launched on a version of Holochain that's like performant and stable. I don't want to go too much into the visions that are possible, because they haven't been weeded out yet. We haven't actually kind of figured out what are worth pursuing and what aren't, and we've been including some feedback from, especially from Holochain development team, but yeah, I think one of the things is just that the chain structure may change to be able to have groups of entries and actions included in a single header. It's just going to help with validation. It's a structural change to the chains. I know that that's one of the kind of changes, but it's kind of technical and geeky and not very exciting. Other possible exciting ones haven't been decided on.
Super. All right. We talk a lot about technical details, Mary, but let's not forget the people who make Holochain and Holo happen. How do you keep the team motivated and focused with so much going on?
I think this is a great question. So appreciate whoever asked this one. I think this is really interesting. It's a mix of things, right? We have a lot of people on our team that are they're motivated internally about bringing this work to the world. The potential of how, it can better our lives, it can better society, I think is a lot of what drives people. It's a purpose that is like meaningful to them. So that's a big part of it. But I think also there's other things like the depth of relationship that some of our team members have with one another. That's a big deal, like in terms of having people really love doing work and collaborating and co-working and that sort of thing. But really, to be real, not everybody is always feeling great or motivated all the time. I mean, we're a team a diverse team, and we have our share of burnout across the team. And so just like everyone around the globe, we can be affected by bad news or personal ups and downs. We do try to make space for that in the way we work together. In the coming year, we'll also be prioritizing some time for our team to gather and to co-work, to co-create, to play together, reconnect in person, because we have been global and remote for a long time now, 5 years, and we haven't done a lot of gathering. So that's something that's there. But yeah, it's a mix. Good question.
Yeah, great question. I'll just building off that a tiny bit for the person who asked the question. I think one of the things that sets this team apart is of course there are the normal ups and downs, but there's a fundamental motivation to bring what we're creating into the world. So people have a resource to draw upon that is quite different from the majority of workplaces. When you're building a technology that you think can help improve the way that we work together, the way, and the way that different communities can operate, then you're tapping into a reserve that's often beyond you. So I'd say that's the other thing is we have a level of resilience as an organization, but also as individuals and small groups that's partly fueled by that level of connection. All right, so next one, great question coming. If you were tasked with telling the world and potentially some extraterrestrials what sets your project far apart from all the other projects being taken down or fined by regulators, what would that be?
David, I think you should talk about how do we differentiate from all the other projects, and then maybe we'll get to the other part of the regulators in a minute.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think for me the best way, because I spend quite a bit of my time, a bit like what we saw with NOR, working with people who have a vision to bring something into the world where Holochain is the technology that makes that possible. So really, if I'm going to answer that question, I want to be chatting to the extraterrestrials and understanding what are they looking for. And I've actually been reading the Foundation series. So I could start to imagine that they're trying to populate all of these different planets, and they might not have connectivity the whole time. And they're probably going to want to run like Holochain conductor, on their ships, and then they're going to want app stores, all these apps running. They want to synchronize when they're back on one planet, but then they're still doing activity on different planets, and they're going to want things that, again, one of the things that really struck me about Foundation, predicting the inevitability of Holochain, is you end up with these really micro systems that are all slowly interconnected, and the power of having the small and interconnected systems that we've just not even scratched the surface. So I think the thing is with the extraterrestrials, what other technology is going to be possible to enable them to do, which is they actually want intergalactic coordination.
Okay. That's great. A great answer, David.
Now that David's given the fun part of the answer, I want to mention something about the second part about regulators. I do think that there are some differences. In particular, one of the noteworthy ones Mostly regulators have been tackling issues around securities, and specifically like regulators in the US. We've been pretty conservative about having anything happen in the US. Plus, we haven't had to make this case yet, but there's, I think, a pretty good case that doing peer-to-peer crypto accounting is actually a different approach than minting a bunch of tokens that you're then going to try to convince people have value, which very much looks like what a security is, like issuing stock you're trying to sell or something like that. But accounting is legal everywhere. Doing peer-to-peer accounting that's just cryptographically signed, we may be able to make a case that this is very different than minting tokens. And so we haven't had to make that case, but there's definitely some differences that put us on a different footing.
Just another piece of it is that we've been, doing things according to the rules. We came to a jurisdiction where the rules were more clear, that we have been kind of, from the moment we started our ICO, we followed guidance. We did it correctly according to how Gibraltar wanted it to be done back then. It was early days, but we were still kind of doing all of our homework ahead of time and then making sure that we were, crossing our T's, dotting our I's, all those things, so that when it came to going live with our work, everything would be kind of following on top of that. So it was built on top of doing it right from the get-go. And I think a lot of projects were flying a little, loose back in the day, and that has gotten a lot of folks in trouble over the years. So that's how we're different.
It's also one of the reasons why we haven't been listed on US exchanges. We haven't allowed that yet.
Oh, great question. Well, I do think, though, that Holochain in space is a really great fit. And the conversations have happened bit by bit over the last few years, but like 2024 would be a good year to really start making that happen. Is it true we have grown our employees from 30 to 50 plus over the past 1 to 2 years? Mary?
Not exactly. We've added team members in the past year or two, but we've also hired a lot of people for smaller time-limited scopes of development, and we haven't hit the 50 mark. So
why is there continued development on both Holochain 0.2 and 0.3? What are the differences between them, and what's the plan moving forward?
The releases that are happening that are marked 0.3, those are actually coming straight off of the develop branch of Holochain. So that's kind of the leading edge of our code development. It's not really intended for use unless you're a dev that actually needs the latest features for that you're working on in your app. And so the previous ones, the beta 1, which has been the stable branch, and beta 2, we haven't marked stable because of a couple of issues which we think we've addressed in recent things, but we still haven't marked it stable yet. We've been backporting relevant fixes from beta 3 to beta 2 and occasionally beta 1. We're really not making updates to beta 1 anymore. So that's the difference. And there are, I don't want to skip ahead to the next question. Oops.
Oh, will Holochain 0.3 bring availability to run a node on a smartphone? If yes, do you know how awesome this is?
Yeah, there are definitely some things happening in the develop branch that are about being able to be compatible with smartphone stuff. We've been working closely with a couple of community members who have Holochain apps running on iOS and Android, and we've been working with Vodafone on delivering a full open source mobile solution, which will also include support for some decentralized apps. Our strategy for doing this, a bunch of this is actually in the beta 3 version. So this is part of the response here about the difference between beta 3 and the how awesome it will be to have mobile support. But our strategy for this for mobile is really to turn off gossip on the mobile nodes, to have it be that they're responsible for a 0 arc portion of the DHT, both to reduce battery drain and to keep people from having to, blowing out their data plans with gossiping with lots of other nodes. This means that mobile phones still are acting as kind of a node light, a peer light, but they aren't expected to serve data to other peers. I don't know if we should, how much detail we should go into here. Guillem's been working on a Tauri version on Android. Connor's been working on an iOS approach in which he pre-compiles the stuff before, pre-compiles it to the native binary format before distributing it to the phone. But there's less hardware diversity on iOS, but on Android, because we don't know what hardware it's going to run on, it's actually been compiling on phone, which makes it slow to start. And it actually helped us find a bug where when you were restarting things that should have actually been using a cached version of the compilation, it was recompiling again. It was just happening fast enough on desktops and laptops that we didn't notice it was happening, but on mobile it's not as fast. So yeah, there's mobile stuff in the works. Pretty exciting.
And if yes, do you know how awesome this is?
No, it's awesome.
Why? I will. Sorry, I know we don't have enough time, but why, for guys? Why is this awesome for both of you?
I'm sorry, I actually didn't understand what you just said.
Why is it so awesome to have a holochain running on mobile?
Because we use apps on mobile. And Holochain, we want apps that are everyday usable apps. Well, we use phones every day. And the apps that go between our laptops and our phones are the ones that are the most useful to us typically. So that's why, to me, it's critical. It just, some of the apps that are for coordinating with people, which is what Holochain's awesome at, should be working on mobile.
Yeah, and the world has changed a lot since we actually made the business plan for Holo in 2017, which was a web first approach. And many things, if not most things, are going mobile first nowadays. But part of the so we actually have to catch back up. We had to deliver what we promised first, So we haven't been able to fully shift in that direction. But for me, part of what's exciting is actually there's some really cool projects emerging in Africa and other places where connectivity is not as reliable. And part of the power of Holochain is that it can work asynchronously and local first. And so if you can actually, in a lot of those places, people don't have laptops and everything. All they have are smartphones. And so if you can actually have your smartphone be able to operate local first with data and then synchronize when you get on Wi-Fi or other things like that and be doing this kind of asynchronous stuff, that's really powerful for solving problems in those spaces. That's something blockchains don't do. Blockchains are doing constant global consensus. You need to be in sync with the global state. You can't really function offline.
Yeah, very doing that with my Google Docs while I was on the plane today. I was hoping one of you were going to talk about the portability from mobile to extraterrestrial phone or other communication devices, but nobody did. Mary, can we survive financially another year?
Yes, we can. In the past we had some near misses and averted some crises early on in the project, and but today we really manage our funds carefully and with clarity that we're gonna move these. We know we need to move our projects towards sustainable revenue models, but we're in good shape.
Okay, is there any progress in the gossiping issue that affects all the Holochain apps? And if so, what is the strategy to deal with this?
Yeah, this is actually one of the reasons why we haven't declared the beta branch stable, is because there were things that were presenting as gossip issues. And actually, as we audited code recently in our workflows, recently meaning in the past couple months, in our workflows, we actually found some bugs in our validation workflow that were actually probably the source of this problem. Because it turns out data was getting gossiped to nodes, but then it was getting stuck in their validation queue. So it didn't become visible, that it didn't become available because it was still stuck in validation. Now these fixes, we're actually backporting to the beta 2 version, and that's hopefully what will be able to give it the stable blessing. But we have to test all that out first.
And can you assure us that Holo will work in the real world and it's not just a POC anymore? Wishing the team best.
Well, I think the demo that you started with is a pretty good example of it working in the real world, because it is working in the real world.
Yeah, it's definitely very cool.
And on that note,
yes, Mary.
All right, I'm up. So, I know there's a lot of people out there on our call today. So, drum roll, we have our announcement. So here it is. Before the end of the year, we're deploying the first network release candidate for Holo hosting. So, yes, that means the network release candidate. So what you might see in some verbal announcements, or I'm sorry, rather written announcements, is that we're going to be calling this Network-RC. This is essentially the full feature version of the Holo network and infrastructure. So this is not the launch of the Holo network. During the next few months, we're going to be in a period of finalizing things. This is a crucial time for us, where we're going to be working with a third-party auditing firm, Least Authority. They're the ones who did an audit of Ethereum. They're also the ones that did an audit, two of the audits on Holochain. So in December this year, before the end of the year, Holo is going to deploy our first network release candidate. And this is the period where we're going to be doing all of our necessary audits, all of our load testing, as well as infrastructure hardening prior to launch. Okay, so I'm going to say a couple more things. There's a question out there, David. I'm going to pull this one in because there was a question that came earlier. Someone had noticed that, hey, we're seeing KYC services ready. So people who are in our alpha network, they've been seeing us release things for months, little by little. And so the question's, well, when is Holo beta? When's the swap? Well, yes, we've been adding a lot of new features, really. We've done source chain persistence. We've done intelligent routing. We've done the infrastructure and the apps for the Holofuel Reserve, as well as the know your customer processes and the third-party integrations required for all of those. So our team has been really hard at work these past months. And so flipping back to that question that y'all asked at the very beginning about the lack of updates. Yeah, it's been a problem that we haven't updated our roadmap, because we've actually been getting a lot of great things accomplished on our roadmap. And so we're putting that out today. Let's do a share screen right now for a minute on the roadmap. Can we get that out there? Somebody let me know when the screen is up. If not, I can probably bring it up. But here's the thing. You might have noticed that on the updated roadmap, which is going to be on the screen in a minute, and in a bunch of our communications, we're not using the term beta anymore. We've actually replaced it with the word launch. And in December, there we go. You can see the updated roadmap. This will be on the website in just a little while, right after this call. In December, we're deploying the network release candidate. And that whole section over there at the very end that is in a lighter green, that's the Network-RC period. So we'll be launching I just said that poorly. We'll be releasing multiple versions of the network candidate as we go through this process, get the audit done, make any fixes, do some resilience or hardening of the infrastructure. This is all about making sure it's secure and that it works at scale. And so this will mean that Holofuel will be running in the network release candidate, but it won't be Holofuel with real Holofuel. It'll be a test fuel. So Holofuel will not be live. Test fuel will be transacted during the Network-RC period. But this is going in December, and we're very excited to let people know about this. Cool.
Do we know we've gone? Any questions that have come up? I'll just mention to the guys if any questions come up that we want to ask. Actually, I've got a live question that's slightly. Here we go. Andrew from Telegram has just asked if there's any news on the Quantised Gossip patent.
that has been coming through. We're just finalizing some pieces, getting some signatures from the devs involved in that. Yeah, including Arthur Brock and one or two other people.
I'm just realizing that that's an outstanding task in my inbox this week that I haven't signed that and sent that back. Yeah, the assignment.
We don't have a specific news on that one. But I mean, in terms of like whether or not it's been all the way come through, because we're still in process and we have to give the patent office some other information.
Cool. Okay. Mary, I think let's just there's someone's watching that's still trying to understand if the Network-RC is comparable to beta.
Okay.
So is it like a beta? So, but I think it's worth reiterating.
Yeah, I think so too. This is really important. So when we talk about Network-RC, it's a feature complete version of Holo hosting. It means you can host applications. It's what we promise to deliver. The thing that it is that it's a period of time during which the functions are there and we're testing and we're getting audited and we're making sure that the servers that are running some of these things are secure and resilient. We're opting to not use the term beta any longer for Holo, and we're using the word launch because at that moment, when we do launch in the future, all of the network applications, including Holofuel, will be fully functional in a production capacity. That means when we launch later, we'll be using Holofuel to pay for hosting. And so when we say launch, we're going to be making it clear to everyone that the network is live and that utility is real. For Network-RC, it's test fuel. We are not live for Holofuel. It is test fuel. We are testing all of the applications. There will be applications up on the network hosted. So there's going to be applications like Newsfeed. There's going to be some of the other apps that we've built, plus applications built by other developers who have been building things for these last few months that will go up there and be used. But it won't be finalized, and these things may still have to be replaced. We have this process that's called a hash bump that basically means it resets the network. And during Network-RC, that will probably happen several times as we update certain aspects of the code as part of the audits and the changes that are required for hardening.
Yeah, just to say it slightly differently, there's also been some confusion between Holochain beta and Holo beta, and so we're using the word launch where we were using the word beta, and this is, it would have been like the beta release candidate. It's now the Network-RC, so it's the Holo Hosting Network release candidate for launch, because this is the version that actually we need to have get audited and all that kind of stuff. So it is a major milestone. It means all the features have arrived, and it doesn't mean there aren't going to be any code changes, because that's the whole point of the audit and the performance testing and everything. But it does mean that everything's working, as you can see on the NOR demo, for example.
And one other thing, the roadmap right now is updated to what is true today. The Network-RC deployment will be done before the end of this month. And when that happens, we will mark the last two of the milestones that are in the roadmap as complete this month, and that will change before the end of the year. So the final thing that's inside of the network release period, that's going to happen as part of the testing and hardening.
Remember, hey Mary, what does this mean for hosts? What do they need to do?
Well, one of the things that's happening is that there's going to be updated documentation up on the developer portal. This will help our app managers firstly to be able to get their apps ready for testing on the network. And then hosts are going to automatically so if you're in the alpha program and if you're in the alpha network right now, the Network-RC is going to be first deployed into that environment. So everybody who is an alpha host right now will be able to see it and use it. And there may be some apps that are being tested on there, smoke tested. But we are going to push that into the more public use environment in January, so that we're all ready to do the responses and have customer service available and everything like that. We don't want to do that on top of the holiday, but that will happen in January. And this is all explained in more detail in the announcement article post that's going out later today. Looks like there's some other questions coming in.
Yeah, I'll rattle through a couple of others. So will we convert from test fuel to Holofuel before launch or at launch?
Yeah, we will use Holofuel at launch. So that comes after a full deploy. It'll be a different deployment process. And when we announce that it's launched and it goes live, that will be the beginning of Holofuel being real.
And this is from NavD. I'm assuming the network release candidate will give sufficient info on how much compute power Holo hosts can individually provide and how that compares with AWS.
I think that might be pushing it.
Yeah, I mean, we still won't have, we will be doing a bunch of load testing, and that'll give us some indications. But, you know, still in many cases, I think the limitation here, the bottleneck, is not going to be compute power. It's going to be bandwidth, because most people don't have, most people's home internet connections are not fully synchronous. They don't go the same speed both ways. They go slower up than down. And so for most people who are in that kind of connection, bandwidth is likely their bottleneck, not compute. If you're lucky enough to have like a fully synchronous gigabit fiber connection where you can provide gigabit upload speeds or something like that, then you may be in a different category, but most people aren't in that category. And therefore, most of the boxes aren't going to be, because the boxes are actually out in the world in people's places. Most of the boxes aren't going to be hitting their compute limits.
Awesome. Okay, a couple of other quick ones that are coming in. So my dashboard, I assume this is a Holo Alpha user, hasn't changed for months. Maybe it will now.
So if you're a host, a lot of the dashboard was already updated. There might have been a few things that weren't, but you will certainly have all the functions that are going to be in in full feature by the end of this month. Yes.
If you're on the Alpha network.
If you're on the Alpha,
if
exactly.
Your host has been on the master, the original version, it has not been updated in quite a long time, and that won't be updated until January.
Well, and let me say a couple of things about that. If you are also an alpha tester if you're one of the hosts that is in our alpha test program, your HoloPort may be being used in a variety of different ways. So you may not be in the grouping that has all the latest information, even if you are an alpha tester. Okay, because some of the HoloPorts are being used for testing Holochain. Some of the HoloPorts are being used to actually launch, host applications out there. I mean, we were using a grouping of HoloPorts to host part of Fractal Tribute. We are using a grouping of those HoloPorts to host NOR. And this will continue, and we're going to be sorting through some of those details in the coming month or so, and be making more explicit communications to each group of people, whether you're an app manager or whether you're a host. You'll be getting some information that is relevant to what you need to know as we move forward with this.
Yep. Cool. Yep. Someone asked what I was eating. but my son brought me in a piece of cheesecake he made, which I did already answer on Telegram. I think, oh yeah, there was another one. Are there any Holochain applications available or in development that enable non-technical users to create Holochain applications?
Well, our scaffolding is only a little bit technical, but you do need to be technical to then connect it to finalize the front end a little bit. You at least need to be able to edit some HTML type stuff for that. But there is generative objects, right, where they've been working on a GUI interface for developing Holochain apps. Do you know any status on that, David?
No, actually, that's a really good point. Generative objects is the MetaGo is very, very, very cool. I'll check in with Walter. It's a for a certain type of app as well. More on the like data collection side. Okay, and then what about HoloPorts that are still in 1.0?
So I'm assuming in this question that they mean the HoloPorts that are running the older version of Holochain, the 0.1.6 version of Holochain, which was, this is exactly what, when we said there are some folks who are in our alpha, Holoport alpha program, whose holoports are being used in different areas. They're not in the latest and greatest right now. They're still being used to support applications that are hosted. And so Fractal Tribute right now still has some things up, and that is all running on the 0.1.6 version of Holochain. We'll be making some decisions about how all of that will go over the course of the next few weeks as we get closer to the end of the year. So I don't have a clear answer about exactly where each person will be as we make this release. I don't know that everybody will have access to it, who is in the Holoport Alpha program right in December. And certainly all the folks who are out, who are not in the Alpha program, this is going to be pushed out into that public area in January. So it's going to go into the Holoport Alpha program as a full release candidate, and then we'll go public in January for everyone else.
Super. Okay. Thank you, Mary. Guys, okay. There's this. Okay. Let me just go into this one. So I've got another 10 minutes. Have there been any tests done for source chain persistence at this phase? And what are our observations of its fluency so far?
Yes, we actually, because that is a part of being able to actually bring things live for Holo, we have been working on that, and we've implemented a chain head coordinator, and we've actually implemented that as something that has native support in Holochain, so that it might even be possible for non-host people to do this if they want to run multiple devices, but they'd have to run their own chain head coordinator that actually allows your source chain to run on multiple devices and make sure it doesn't get out of sync, get forked. And along with that, there's some backing up of the source chain data to make sure that if your host that you have set up your chain on goes offline, that you haven't lost everything. And because hosts may come and go for various reasons, or a device may crash. And so this is definitely a part of the resilience that we've been building into Holo hosting. Do you want to say anything more, Mary? Okay.
What is the burning mechanism of Holochain? I love this question.
Well, yeah. Well, Holochain doesn't have a currency, so there is no burning mechanism. There's no native token. There is a token for Holo hosting, but that token is issued via mutual credit, which is a different form of issuance than the sadly fiat issuance of tokens through minting, which I know isn't the way most people use the word fiat, but or in the crypto space, but that is the original use of the word fiat. So what that means in Holofuel is that it actually has a net zero supply. So it's spent into existence by some people being able to have negative balances. In particular, like Holo, the organization, as the infrastructure provider, gets to be able to have a negative balance that is correlated to the size of our ICO. So when we collect transaction fees, whenever you receive whenever somebody with a positive balance is spending money to somebody who has a negative balance, you could say the tokens are burned. They disappear. The overall supply is shrinking. The net supply is always zero. It's an anti-inflationary, anti-deflationary currency supply. So burning doesn't exactly apply. Hopefully that answers.
It does. Thank you. Yeah, I think like every AMA, I feel like we've got some kind of question that makes the assumption that Holochain has a token. And actually, I know that one of the things that Mary's been encountering a lot in conversations around the world more recently is people getting very, very excited that we don't have a token. And one of the things that's really exciting from what we shared with Nor, for those of you who saw that and are still here, is you can start to see there's not the friction of dealing with wallets as you're interacting with a system. You're not having to play a game and deal with tokens. And we know from the Web3 gaming side of things that we know that there's a huge trend towards decentralized gaming, but we also know that gamers and others don't want to accept the friction of dealing with money when they just want to play something that they love. So you can start to see here some of these questions that have been going on for a couple of years about these underlying assumptions of why token and et cetera. Actually, the power of the design choice starts to allow us to do things that we want to do and do things we love without the same friction that we're associated with when we're dealing with blockchain transactions. So super exciting. Okay, there's a few different questions. Mary's going to pick it up now. That just going back and forth in Telegram and other places about the swapping hot to Holofuel. The implications are so good. Thank you. Swapping hot to Holofuel. Do you have to swap hot to Holofuel? And the implications for the swap, like, would the swap happen before launch? Would the swap happen after launch? It's all the capability of swapping. So, Mary, do you want to pick up those three? And I can break it down if you forget.
No, I think it's fine. I think I can get those. So first of all, the swap isn't happening until we launch. And right now, as you'll see in the announcement and that just went out in the post, we're targeting Q2 for our launch as well. So wanted to make a lot of our announcement live here today was about our Network-RC is happening in December, and then we're expecting to launch in Q2. When we launch, right after we launch, that's when the swap happens. The swap will happen at the reserve account for Holo, and you don't have to swap. You can swap if you want to swap. And there may be different reasons for different people to choose that, and we're not going to give a lot of advice about that because that gets us into potentially some precarious position, when it comes to regulators and those sorts of things. But basically, what we've said over and over is that HOT is a prepayment for Holofuel. And what that means is that when you swap it into Holofuel, you can use Holofuel for paying for hosting on the Holo network. And hosts will be able to redeem their Holofuel at the HOT reserve back into HOT, which they can use, as an ERC20 token and then it can be swapped to something else at an exchange. So, or exchanged wherever people do that. So I think I based the answer off of one, when is it going to be done? Which is after launch.
Yep.
Or at the point of launch, it becomes available.
Yep.
The swap period is still 6 months, and it starts immediately upon launch. It is optional, and it will happen at the hot reserve account.
I think that covers everything. All right, so last couple questions, nearly at time. If anyone has something they're desperate for us to get in before the end, please ping it through on YouTube or in Telegram, or I guess on Twitter, although I haven't been tracking Twitter questions. Are there any current hurdles the Holochain team has to cross that may be preventing the Holo team from completing a particular segment of the Holo network development? Mary? Are
there any current hurdles the Holochain team has to cross that may be preventing the Holo team from completing a particular segment of Holo network development? Well, there are things that are still being done that are going to make some changes, yes. And that's actually why we know that there will be, when I was talking about hash bumps earlier, I said when we get into the Network-RC period, some of the like Network-RC releases that we do, the candidate releases that we do, will require a hash bump because they're going to have us upgrading to a new version of Holochain. In particular, there's things that are being added that we're going to take advantage of, but it's not stopping us from getting to Network-RC. It's not stopping us from getting us to our initial release candidate that's full feature. It's just making other possible things available on the network. So ways we do things that are going to be more secure will be added, and we'll be hardening different components with those changes.
Perfect. Okay. Hey, Mary, there's one final question about like people are asking, I don't think we completely cover this. If you pay, if you essentially, no, let's forget this. If you pay for hosting in hot and then it gets converted to Holofuel, so you can actually pay your host, what happens to the hot? Does it just like disappear or?
So hot goes into a reserve account and is held in reserve for hosts who want to redeem their hosting income back out into hot. So basically, the way Arthur was talking about earlier about the Holofuel going up and down, like as debits and credits, this is basically hot is sitting in a different account, is being held in reserve, so that and the reserve account goes into debt, essentially inside of the Holofuel application. I'm saying it poorly, Arthur. Do you want to say it in a very simple, clear way?
I guess I just wanted to say that for hot will be Holofuel's interface to crypto markets. It will continue to be the way that hosts who have provided hosting power and they need to pay their electric bills or whatever the thing is, right? They would be able to redeem through hot, through the reserve account back into hot, so that they could actually convert to a currency that they can pay their electric bills with before Holofuel is on any exchanges, because it's going to be some time for that. And let me actually just throw that one in, because I've seen some questions, a bunch of questions around that. We do not expect Holofuel to be on exchanges at launch. In fact, we would like Holofuel to not be on exchanges during the 6-month swap window where there's a 1-to-1 price, because if you have hot and Holofuel on exchanges, they're going to have different prices, and it's going to create all sorts of weird arbitrage dynamics to have 1-to-1 swap happening along with different pricing. And I think this is going to create a lot of confusion. So we're actually trying to delay Holofuel showing up on exchanges until the swap window is closed.
Cool. I think I was just checking in. Someone was just writing there's a lot to take in. They're going to have to rewatch the AMA. There's a series of more questions that I think are very interesting about about the hosting on computers and about some other particularities of the swap and paying the right amounts and sending to the wrong places and stuff. But I think we can. I think we're hitting our limit here. I'm just wondering, Mary, there's another couple of questions. Do you want to answer them, or do you want to? Is there anything else you feel like needs to be shared?
I just want to make sure that we say that there's going to be a lot more information coming out. This is not it. This was an announcement about us getting to a milestone, which is our network release candidate. And we're not trying to like deal with all the complexities of everything that's going to be coming at launch. There will be a lot more information that will be coming over the course of the next few months. Right now, we're really focused on just getting this completed before the end of the year so that we can, really have a 2023 celebration and celebrate the new year with a network, a Holo hosting network that is basically feature complete.
So, any final words from you, Art?
Well, I think for me, given how big a deal it is to actually have Holo be feature complete and have, something out there that's using it and like in the gaming space that's integrating with chains and all that kind of stuff, I don't know, it feels like we've had a pretty calm and even keeled tone. Maybe that's just our mode of expression. I know it's usually mine, but this is actually something worth celebrating, and it's nice to see all the pieces come together.
Yeah, for sure. I think I wrote at the time that when I was playing Fractal Tribute for the first time, I had one of those moments where I was experiencing something that I've done many times, but never been able to collaborate with other people concurrently. Always, and it took me into a place where I had that first visceral experience. The other one was actually when we all turned our HoloPorts on, and there were several hundred people all connected, and you could look around, almost like look on the screen, and we had a few hosts also on the AMA at that time and describing that moment where their HoloPort was live, and just thinking away about the way the internet is connected through data centers at the moment, and actually we're going to move towards a future where the internet is also connected through people. And then you hear, like, if we're thinking to play back just some of the things that we've shared today, the progress on Holochain on mobile and the implications for that, the movement to the full feature release candidate and making good on Holo going live. And we didn't share some of the other exciting conversations around Holo and the possibilities for what this network can start to bring beyond Holochain, which will come in 2024. We showed NOR, and so suddenly we've got, again, really in stealth mode, something that can shape the way Web3 gaming, an industry that needs innovation. It needs a step change because it's at a static point where everyone knows wallets aren't the answer, but people are hacking away trying to hide wallets instead of now starting to see there's another possibility in working in this kind of infrastructure. So we saw that as well. There's been a huge amount this year, and somehow it seems like it's all just converging at the same time. One more thing.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I have one more thing. I forgot. So I had a call with Sam and Anita from the Holochain Happenings community, and they've updated their database, and they have 109 projects building on Holochain in their database now. And I just wanted to note we had a goal of 100 apps on Holochain, and they're not all. Some of these stages are in various, or some of these projects are in various stages of building. Not all of them are built, but that's very close to that 100 app, target on Holochain for the year too. So that's anyway. it's worth noting that we're crossing good thresholds.
Well, I think on that note, thank you all for joining AMA 55, one of the more exciting, or possibly most exciting to date. I don't think we'll be fitting in another one this year, but early in the next year, definitely I'm going to be pushing because I want to show the NOR game live and tournament system and everything. So stay tuned for ecosystem sessions to do with that, but also stay tuned for another AMA where we can showcase and go into a bit more detail. Thank you for everyone for watching. I think we had around 600 people at some stage. Yeah. For those of you watching back, enjoy it. Have a wonderful holiday period and see you all in 2024.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.